music.
There is no terrible way to win. There is only winning.
We won't be out long.
Take your time. Track's all yours.
You ready? The name on the middle of that steering wheel should tell you that I was born ready. Hit it. Attaboy.
Let me drive. I will make a fool out of you.
I got a message for all of them. Shake and bake.
What does that do? Does that blow your mind?
That just happened.
These cars, you sit in a box, a coffin, gasoline all around you. It isn't like it being inside a bomb.
It's tough enough being a girl on the track. Living in my dad's shadow doesn't help much.
You have to be kind to the car. You feel the poor thing groaning underneath you.
No race was ever won in the first corner.
I'm gonna give you an engine, low to the ground, extra big oil pan will cut the wind from underneath you. That'll give you 30 to 40 more horsepower.
Every one of us has to find a reason to do this. You do it because you're driven.
Brakes are warm. Tires are warm.
I'll work in the cars and I'll drive and I'll eat and sleep and I'll work in the cars and I'll drive.
Damn fast, and when he runs so close together, it requires fantastic concentration and rather special skills.
I was beginning to think I'd never be anything more than a piston-happy lead-foot punk. Then this starts to happen.
If you're going to push a piece of machinery to the limit and expect it to hold together, you have to have some sense of where that limit is.
Besides, the best drivers don't dwell on the future or the past. The best drivers focus only on the present.
They could never have imagined it, those pioneers who invented the automobile, that it would possess us like this in our imaginations, our dreams.
I'm gonna give you a fuel line that will hold an extra gallon of gas. I'm gonna shave half an inch off you and shape you like a bullet.
Somebody put it in your mind you gotta be perfect every time out or you're a failure. Well, forget that. Just forget it.
Racing is in my blood.
I was put on this earth to race cars.
I accept every time I get in my car. There's 20% chance I could die, and I can live with it. Not 1% more.
No, Nicky, don't bring the percentages into this. Don't be a pro. The minute you do that, you kill what's good about this. You kill the sport.
And at that speed, your reactions can barely keep up with these sudden changes in direction.
You ready to put away your toys and grow up?
You want me to work the pit and you drive? Fine, we'll try that.
The car's a living, breathing thing, and she's alive.
If any of us really think it would be like to go into a tree at 150 miles an hour, we would probably never get into the cars at all. None of us.
Are you ready to become a real race car driver?
I am just as good as anybody out there on that track, and I don't need anybody to win my races for me.
I wish my daddy were alive to see this, to feel this.
And when we get you primed, painted, and weighed, you'll be ready to go out on that racetrack. You hear me? You're gonna be perfect.
You don't understand what happens, do you? They make 10,000 cars, they make them exactly the same way, and one or two of them turn out to be something special. Nobody knows why.
When I won it was probably the last time I ever felt pure victory.
So it has always seemed to me that to do something very dangerous requires a certain absence of imagination.
Because I'm quicker than all of you.
Soon you will know what it is like to be defeated by the hands of somebody who is truly better than you.
The only thing to do here is to drive just as fast as you know how and hope your car doesn't break.
And if you no longer go for a gap that exists, you're no longer a racing driver.
If you ain't first, you're last.
There's 40 other vultures out there who managed to finish the race on their tires. You see Darrell Waltrip using up his tires?
There's nothing I can't do with a race car.
Oh, hell, isn't that what we're in this for? To stare death in the face and to cheat it? Come on, there's nobility in that. It's like being knights.
Sometimes you could swear the whole thing's falling to bits.
No pressure, nobody breathing down my back, just driving because I left it pure.
On the other hand, I suppose potential problems are in the back of your mind all the time.
So in many ways, I feel responsible for what happened. And
You were, but trust me, watching you win those races while I was fighting for my life, you were equally responsible for getting me back in the car.
You're so lucky. Sit there all closed in by machinery and bolts, precise things. There's hardly any room for you. It must be a nice, safe feeling.
You gotta learn to trust something. Just as well be the seat of your pants.
A lot of people go through life doing things badly. Racing's important to men who do it well. When you're racing, it's life. Anything that happens before or after, it's just waiting.
Well, we can drive. We can drive beyond the limits of the tires, the engine, the car, anything else.
Look out there. Out there is the perfect lap. No mistakes. Every gear change, every corner. Perfect. You see it.
I just hope when you do, that I'm there to see it.
Ask any racer, any real racer. It don't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. Winning's winning.
But it isn't just business, is it? What we do. It's passion, love, which is why we're prepared to risk our lives for it.
Racing. That's the name of the game, isn't it? Win or lose, put up or shut up.
Why does everybody keep telling me what my problem is?
That you get so emotional.
You would never, ever say that to a guy.
If you don't leave your feelings off the track, you're never going to get what you want.
I'm a race driver, and I can win it on my
Please let me race.
Fine. Then let's race.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the next round of the Grand Prix World Series. We are here in Sepang in Malaysia, the return of the Sepang circuit to the Formula 1 grid. We are in for a very exciting race today. We cannot wait for this one. My name is Topher Smith, and alongside me in the commentary box, Tom Cairns. Tom, welcome to Sepang. This is going to be a great race today.
Hello, Topher. Hello, everyone who's tuned in. And yes, I'm so pleased that we are racing here. A beloved Sepang International Circuit. It's a fast-flowing racetrack which has held Formula 1 races for 19 years, from 1999 to 2017. It's been off the calendar for Formula 1 over the last few years, but I still very much adore this circuit. And I'd love it for Formula 1 to be back there in the future. Meanwhile, in regards to today, the Grand Prix World Series gets its chance to relish the humid challenge that is here in Kuala Lumpur.
And I believe that this was the first ever circuit in Formula 1 that was designed by Herman Tilke, if I'm not mistaken. A few of his circuits in the past have been, let's say, a little bit questionable in terms of their overtaking opportunities, but Tom, this particular circuit, a Tilke designed circuit and a favourite amongst not just drivers but fans as well.
Yeah, and even for UK viewers who may have to get up earlier in the morning for the event, it's still very much worth getting up for. And we've seen some cracking races over the years in Sepang. You think of 2001, Michael Schumacher's comeback in 2002, Kimi Raikkonen's first victory there in 2003. You've got others like in 2009, where it's the last ever Formula 1 race to see half points being awarded to drivers. And other ones like 2012, where Sergio Perez got his first podium. There's so many memories, Topher, and that's why I feel Formula 1 should be going back there in the future. But if we can get as good of a race here in the Grand Prix World Series, then I can't complain more.
And just to add to that as well, Multi 21 in 2013, a bit more of an infamous incident, shall we say, between the Red Bull duo of Sebastian Vettel and Mark Webber that day. Just to run you through what the plan is for round 3. Usually we run 2 races in a day. We run League 2 and then League 1. Today we are just going to be running the League 2 race, and then tomorrow we will bring you the League 1 race. So 2 days of action for you this time for round 3 in Sepang. We've had 2 rounds already. The first round of the season was won by Callum Ilott, who led home a LaRousse 1-2 ahead of Alexander Rossi, a perfect start to the season for Will Knight's team. And in the second race in Adelaide, Adrian Sutil got the job done ahead of Will Stevens and Marcus Winkelhock. A little bit of a surprise podium there. Maybe not so much for the race winner, Tom, but seeing Will Stevens getting a podium in only his second outing and Marcus Winkelhock getting on the podium when some people were expecting him to be a backmarker. I mean, Tom, it's just set us up for a great season so far.
Yeah, and you have to bear in mind, Topher, that last time out in Adelaide was quite a, quite a crash fest, really, wasn't it? Because there was only so few finishes. I think we only had, 6 classified in the League 2 race, and in the League 1 race we only had 9 drivers classified. So I don't expect the same to be happening in Malaysia. We don't tend to get that many retirements, but given how fragile these cars are in the Grand Prix World Series, anything can happen.
And also with the upgrade window coming up after this race, basically the way that it works with team managers updating their cars, they get prize money based on their finishing positions at each round, and after every third race they can upgrade their cars. They can put more money into the power of the car, or they can work on the reliability. It is up to them how they do it. It's finding a fine balance between the two of, do you want a faster car but maybe a more unreliable car, or do you want to go the other way and make sure that your car finishes? The race in Adelaide, as you say, Tom, was very much a race of attrition, where reliability was probably the better way to go. As you say, I'm not really expecting it to be the same here in Sepang. We should see a few more finishes. But as it stands, after the first 2 rounds of the season so far in League 2, here is the drivers' standings. Adrian Sutil, after his victory in Adelaide, heads up the standings on 30 points, 4 points ahead of Alexander Rossi with 26. Callum Ilott, our Taupo winner, didn't score any points in Adelaide. He retired quite early on as a result of a suspension issue, so not adding to his 25 points from the opening race in Taupo. Will Stevens and Alan McNish also up there. Marcus Finkelhock is 6th in the standings after his podium in Adelaide. Martin Brundle, he started out the season with the Life team and is now with Force India. He has 12 points to his name, as does Marino Sato, who finished 4th on debut last time out. A great result there for the Japanese driver. Alexander Wurz in the Leighton House is on 10, as well as Vincenzo Sospiri in the Andrea Moda. On to the team standings. LaRousse heads that up with their double podium in the opening round. 51 points for the French team. HRT 20 points behind on 31, and then we have Modena, Life and Coloni making it 3 Italian teams in the top 5. Eurobrun, the Swiss team, on 16 points. Leighton House on 10, as well as Andrea Moda, and then we have Real and Zach Speed on 2 and 1 respectively. And Tom, these points, they could change drastically by the end of today's race. What are you expecting out of this one?
Well, given what we've seen in qualifying, Adrian Sutil continuing to show his single lap pace by putting his HRT on pole position alongside Jose Maria Lopez, who is only 0.07 of a second behind the German driver. So we expect to see a good old battle between those two heavyweights in this series. And I have to say, if you were to ask me who the top teams are in the League 2 category, you have to say that LaRousse are up there, given their 1-2 that they picked up in Taupo. And then you've got HRT who are in there, and of course Pacific, who haven't been finishing the races so far as such, really, but they have shown some great pace so far with either Roman Grosjean, Timo Glock, or the other driver who has been racing for them this season. There's so many drivers in there who have been racing so far. I'm just trying to remember who was alongside Grosjean or Glock in there. Danny Kvyat, that's the one I was after. There's so many drivers. I was just trying to remember.
Danny Kvyat. Danny Kvyat, he has been one of the faster drivers so far this championship, but not necessarily the luckiest. He was easily leading the race that we had in Vancouver to start the season. That was a non-championship round. He was absolutely dominating that race, and if you remember, Tom, span it completely unpressured. He span it into the barrier and broke off his rear wing. And that's one of the things you're going to get in this championship. He might be one of the fastest out there, but pressure is everything, and drivers can make mistakes, leading the order to be shaken up somewhat. I don't really like to be making predictions myself, Tom. One thing I do want to be mentioning here is the way that different team managers have thought ahead of this championship. If you take the HRT boss, for example, John Munro, he put all of his pre-season money into the power of the car and nothing into reliability. So we were there thinking pre-season, Tom, he's going to have a fast car, but is he going to get to the end of races? And as it stands, he's second in the championship with 31 points. Take the Pacific team as well. They went for a little bit more of a split, did Carter McCollman with that team. And they haven't really had the best start to the season, has Pacific, even though they've had a fast car. It hasn't been the most reliable, and we've also had drivers making mistakes. There's so many different variables here, Tom. And yeah, any sort of prediction into this championship, I just think, well, just sit back and enjoy the racing.
Yeah, and in this championship, it's not exactly like in Formula One, where you have to have as good of a car in terms of competitiveness as well as reliability. You have to have a good car to last the distance in this series. So we're going back as far as the 1990s, Topher, to see teams whose cars get to the end of races as well as performing well in them. You need to have good between the two, and that's the challenge in this championship. In terms of predictions, we have to say Adrian Sutil will be thinking about his car, trying to get to the end, but he'll want to finish well. He did win the last race as well in the Lead 2 category in Adelaide. So it's touch and go, really. And I think with Sepang being a permanent racetrack, unlike in Adelaide, and there's a lot of areas where a driver can spin off into, there's plenty of time to make back up the ground the drivers lose. And I think the amount of time you lose in the pit lane in Sepang is quite a lot. So it'll be interesting to see what race strategies each of the drivers will be on as well.
Right, well, let's crack on with the action. Let's not keep our viewers waiting any longer. We're going to go straight into the race now. And as we've mentioned already, it is Adrian Sutil who is on pole position in his HRT ahead of Jose Maria Lopez in the Eurobrun, the winner of the pre-season festival at Watkins Glen, so he's got the speed there. Callum Ilott, the winner in Taupo, lines up third ahead of Romain Grosjean for Pacific. Sam Bird in the Zach Speed doing well to line up fifth alongside Alexander Rossi. Mike Conway in the Real getting some speed out of that car ahead of Alexander Wurz in a Leighton House. Alan McNish and Perry McCarthy make up an all-Scuderia Coloni row 5. Will Stevens and Nick Heidfeld are on row 6 ahead of Neil Jarni, and Danny Kvyat not really getting the most out of his car in qualifying. Robert Wickens lines up alongside Scott Speed. Then we have Dario Franchitti and Cristiano Di Matta on row 9 ahead of Marino Sato and Marcus Fingelhock getting his first podium last time out. Mark Blundell and Enrique Benaldi are on row 11. Then we have Alex Zanardi and Taki Inoue ahead of Vincenzo Sospiri and Martin Brundle propping up the rear of the field in the Force India. And here we go, Tom. We go down to trackside. Adrian Sutil alongside Jose Maria Lopez. We've seen a few shunts here and there down into turn 1. How do you think this one's going to go today?
Well, if there's any racetrack to make use of the wide circuit, this is a great example of it. And I'm sure Adrian Sutil will be very much thinking about Lopez alongside him and Callum Ilott, who we know is good at race starts. And here we go, Topher.
Here we are. Sutil leads away from pole position. He's got Jose Maria Lopez ducking into slipstream behind. Sutil's made a barnstormer of a start there, doing his best to not get caught up in any of the shenanigans behind him. I think there's a little bit of contact down at the back already. I saw some smoke being puffed up. We right on board with Enrique Benaldi. And yeah, we've got a bit more contact there. And not really sure if there's any damage there. I haven't seen any bits of carbon fibre flying just yet. We're looking at the Fondamentals there. Meanwhile, at the front, Adrian Sutil continues to lead ahead of Romain Grosjean, who's got up from 4th to 2nd. The Frenchman's had a flying start there, getting past Jose Maria Lopez and Callum Ilott, and he's now all over the back of the leading German. Mike Conway is there, who's under pressure from, I think that's Alan McNish in the Coloni going through. He's now in a Coloni sandwich with Perry McCarthy right behind him as well. And a little bit of argy-bargy there between, I think that might have been Alex Zanardi and Enrique Benaldi ahead of Taki Inoue riding on his onboard. Zanardi looks like he's dropped back behind the Japanese now. We're not sure if he's got any damage. But meanwhile, at the front, here is Adrian Sutil, who's now built up a bit of a gap to Romain Grosjean ahead of him. Lopez now all over the back of Grosjean again. So Grosjean getting a great start off of the line, but not really capitalising on that to get ahead of Sutil for the lead.
Yeah, as you can see, there's a battle behind us. Nick Heidfeld losing 2 places though. Nearly lost 3, didn't he? He's lost places to the Andrea Modas by the looks of it. So Heidfeld going backwards so far.
Well, there was some damage on Nick Heidfeld's car. I just saw it there. He's lost the right-hand part of his front wing. So maybe there was some carbon fibre flying around in that first corner mix-up. There was definitely a bit of argy-bargy down there. Didn't see anything flying at first, but looking at it now, Nick Heidfeld in his Zach Speed definitely got some front wing issues there. Mike Smith, the head of Zach Speed, is not going to be particularly happy with the start that his German driver has got. But on the flip side of the coin, Tom, he's got Bird up in 5th place, so maybe Zach Speed can salvage something from this.
Yeah, and we saw Callum Ilott making a dive down the inside of Lopez onto the last corner before the pit straight. You can see there's another battle going on behind. That looks like the Zach Speed of Sam Bird down the inside of Callum Ilott. This is a good move there from Sam Bird, passing his compatriot and up into 4th place in the Zach Speed. Next man up from him is the Eurobrun of Jose Maria Lopez.
So there is some speed in the Zach speed there, if you pardon the pun there. But Nick Heidfeld, he's had to go into the pit lane to get repairs to his car. Sam Bird, meanwhile, holding up Zach Speed's honour at the front of field, getting past Callum Ilott for 4th place and now chasing down Jose Maria Lopez. Heidfeld is now into the pit lane, all the way at the back of the field, so he will have some clear track to work with. But I'm pretty sure that will be day done for the German, unless we get another race of attrition. We're now looking at Roman Grosjean, who has gapped Lopez a bit now. He had the Argentine all over the back of him at the end of the first lap, but he's now finding his way back towards the back of the HRT of Sutil. The gap is now 1.8 seconds. Sutil, maybe not as comfortable as he'd like to be, but it's only a start of the race. We've still got a long way to go. 40 laps total is the distance of this particular League 2 race. Again, as a reminder, we are only having the League 2 race today, and tomorrow we will bring you League 1, the main event, where I can already tell you that Nico Hülkenberg has qualified on pole for that one. So if you are Emma Butterworth and the Arrows team, you're very happy with how that's gone, especially off the back of Kamui Kobayashi's victory in the opening round of the season in Taupo. Kobayashi going from 11th on the grid to the victory there, so a good start to the season already for Arrows. Hülkenberg putting it onto pole, hasn't won a race yet though, so maybe tomorrow is going to be the day where that all changes. But at the moment, Tom, let's focus on the League 2 race. Roman Grosjean sets the fastest lap there as he chases down the HRT of Adrian Sutil, and Carter McCollum and the Pacific team, Tom, they need a good result here.
They certainly do, and Carter McCollum's team, who I believe have yet to pick up a point so far in the Grand Prix World Series. I know we've had 2 rounds so far, but if he wants his team to get promotion by the end of this campaign, now remember the top 3 teams at the end of the Grand Prix World Series Season 2 will be promoted to League 1 for next season, so it's crucial that you get a good haul of points on the board already so that you are in genuine contention for the title. As you can see, Roman Grosjean right on the tail of the HRT of Adrian Sutil in front. We want to get a camera view. There we go. Look, so you can see Grosjean on the gearbox of Sutil, and I wonder if there's going to be a move very, very shortly, Topher.
And Grosjean is looking very racy here. He was up the back of Sutil earlier on, dropped back a bit, maybe just to get a bit more life into his tyres before mounting an attack. And he's now trying to make that work. He's all over the gearbox of Sutil here. And one has to wonder whether there will be a pass incoming in the next few corners. Sutil, he is a hard charger. He's a hard defender. He's not going to let the lead go easily. He wants to make it 2 in a row for HRT and for John Munro and get their season off to almost a perfect start. Now, as you said, Tom, about the way that the promotion relegation system works, the top 3 teams from this league... Oh, actually, let's talk about this. Roman Grosjean looks like he's making a move on Adrian Sutil here. We ride on the nose cam of the HRT. And there we go. Roman Grosjean makes his move through into the lead of the Sepang Grand Prix. Now, that is great news for Carter McCollum. As we were saying about the promotion relegation system, the top 3 teams in this league will be promoted to League 1 for Season 3. While out of League 1, the bottom 3 teams will go the other way. Sutil trying to look for a way back through there on the Pacific. Grosjean shuts the door though. And for Carter McCollum, he's clearly got a fast car under him. So far, at the hands of Danny Kvyat, he's been getting up there into the high reaches of the order. Grosjean now getting the speed out of that car today. But as you said, Tom, they don't have any points in the moment. They've had the speed, but not the results. So getting some points on the board today will mean they can get some prize money to make a good effort of developing their car. So if they come away from this race with 0 points, the only prize money they're going to have, Tom, is just simply the starting fees, which isn't really going to get you a lot in terms of development.
No, and that's why finishing races is ever so crucial in the Grand Prix World Series. Yes, there's at times which you do need to take a bit of a gamble in order to get as high a result in the races as possible, but it's more important that you actually finish the races, because you can have a good car or a really powerful car. You can see Grosjean knocking up there into what I believe is turn 8, I believe. I've forgotten my turn numbers for the Sepang's International Circuit. It's been that long since we've raced it.
It has been a while since we've raced around here. I'm not completely certain myself. And, oh, someone's pressed the wrong button there. Apologies for that, but we are back to the action straight away. Roman Grosjean making a slight error there and lock up his tyres, but he's kept it all together and he continues on his way. So maybe just calm it down a little bit for the rest of the race, which obviously is easier said than done as he's got a charging HRT behind him. Will Stevens making a similar mistake there into the penultimate corner himself, running in 8th position. Will Stevens, he came on board into the series with the Modena team in place of AJ Foyt, who was originally hired as, in some ways, a bit of a promotional value was AJ Foyt, having an absolute legend of the sports coming in and having a go at Formula 1 again. He's 86 years old now, if I remember correctly, and a little bit of a moment there for Robert Wickens as he tries to get past Danny Kvyat. He keeps it pointing in the right direction, thankfully, and maybe going to make a move on the Russian into turn 1. And is he going to outbrake him here? Oh, we've cut away at just the wrong moment. Well, looking at the graphic on the top left, Wickens hasn't made the move through into 11th position. Points very nearly there for Leighton House. We'll have to wait and see how that transpires. They also have Wirtz up in 5th position, so we'll have to see how the rest of the race pans out for them. But speaking of Will Stevens and AJ Foyt, Foyt was brought in for the one race. Did actually a fairly respectable job, did the American, but not really enough to convince the high power to keep him on for the rest of the season. So Will Stevens, the young Brit, was brought in instead. And round 2 saw him take a podium, 2nd place behind Adrian Sutil. 11 seconds off of the lead, so not really that close to the victory, but still a commendable achievement there for Will Stevens, getting a podium on debut, effectively. He's now running in 8th position, and this is Sam Bird, who's recently lost out to Alexander Rossi for 6th place. So Bird showed some good speed earlier, getting up to 5th place, but has since lost out to Alexander Rossi, and also he must have been passed by Alexander Wirtz at some point off camera. Here is Enrique Bernaldi, trying to get past the Force India. I believe that is Alex Nardi. And Jose Maria Lopez is out of the race, it says on the graphics here. We're not seeing what's happened to him just yet, but the Eurobrun, the winner of the pre-season festival at Watkins Glen, falling by the wayside. And it looks like we're not going to get a replay of that one, so we'll have to find out later on. Oh, we've got a blow up there for Sutil. Adrian Sutil's engine has gone. And Tom, what were we saying earlier about the HRT? They put all of their money into power and nothing into reliability. It's worked for them so far, but this time it's come back to bite them.
Yeah, that's 2 of the top 3 out of the race in a space of a few seconds. We don't quite know what happened to Lopez, but we do know that Adrian Sutil's engine has gone belly up, and that's his race run there. So bad news for the HRT squad, and it's all down to Dario Franchitti, who's only just popping into the top 15 now in the other HRT. So yeah, really bad news for, I think it's John Munro, who's the HRT boss. And yeah, and Roman Grosjean is now the race leader in the Pacific.
And that has given Grosjean a race lead of 5 seconds over Callum Ilott now. Ilott, the race winner in Taupo in the official season opener. So he's looking to get a good haul of points to add to the 25 that he scored in New Zealand. Here is Roman Grosjean enjoying a gap of 5.2 seconds now. But as we've seen already this season, Tom, the Pacific might be quick, but it's not necessarily the most reliable. Is he about to... well, not that I want to put any sort of commentator's curse onto the car, but maybe it could go the same way as he previously had.
Yeah, well, we've seen it time and time again with the commentator's curse, haven't we, Topher? And... yeah, and I have to say for Roman Grosjean, he's got to hope he will last the distance this time. And Karen Ilott, who's having a good race so far, in 2nd place. And Wirtz, who's done well from 7th on the grid, or 8th on the grid, I think it was, for Wirtz. He was 8th on the grid at the start, then made up positions up to 5th, and with the retirements of Lopez and Sutil, is now in the final podium position. So Leighton House on course for a good result so far, but it's still 35 laps to go yet.
Leighton House is another team that has had one of the quicker cars in the field, it must be said, but not necessarily the reliability. Wirtz on for 3rd place at the moment, and I hope for the sake of Chris Caveney, the team boss at Leighton House, that they can pull out a good result from this race. The speed in the car is clearly there, so a result on the podium for Alexander Wirtz would be a good justification to all the work that has gone into making that Leighton House the force that it is. Maybe not a challenger for race victories just yet, but with the upgrade window coming up after this race, maybe Chris Caveney can put some of his budget into the power. Try and get a bit nearer the front. We'll have to wait and see how that pans out. Meanwhile, that is Marino Sato in the Life, going past Neil Jarni for 12th place. Sato was one of the stars of Adelaide. He came in as a replacement for Martin Brundle at the Life team, who's now gone off to Force India. But Marino Sato, he lasted the distance in the attritional Adelaide Grand Prix, came home in 4th place, so not quite a podium on debut, but still a very commendable performance for the Japanese driver. Currently in 12th place, he's just overtaken Neil Jarni in the Real, and next up is Danny Kvyat in the Pacific. Kvyat was one of the pre-season favourites heading into this one, but the luck hasn't really fallen his way, Tom.
No, not so far for Neil Jarni or Marino Sarda continuing to impress in the life. You can see Grosjean extending his lead to 6 seconds now, and I'd be interested to know if Grosjean is on a lighter fuel load than those behind him. You can see Martin Brundle trying to make a move on the Andrea motor, but not quite being able to pull that one off. And he's got his teammate of Alex Zanardi right on his gearbox, and there could be a change of position there.
I'll tell you what, we're looking at the live car now. We're looking at Mark Blundell. I always get those two confused, Martin Brundle and Mark Blundell. We're looking at Mark Blundell in the live car. And Andrew Sampson, he took a decision to actually change livery for the season. The opening round, they had the normal red livery of the live team. But after watching the opening race, he found himself getting a bit confused as to whether his car was the Life, the Zaxby, the Eurobrun. You know, he's finding it a little bit difficult to tell. So to make it easier for the viewers and for the commentators, thank you, Andrew, he decided to find the Formula 3 3000 livery for the live team, and he has applied that to his cars. And they really stand out now. Marino Sato has now got past Danny Kvyat. We're looking at the graphics for that. He's just made the overtake on the Russian. Sato tried to make his way up into the points-paying positions. Here is Callum Ilott in 2nd place, who is now 6.9 seconds behind Grosjean. And Tom, I think you're right in pointing out that Grosjean might be on a lighter fuel load here. We haven't actually seen the readouts of the cars yet. It shows on the graphics of the steering wheels how much fuel they've got left on board. We haven't seen that yet, but I think it's quite a good assumption here, Tom, that Grosjean must be on a lighter fuel load.
Yeah, and if he's pulling up at least a second a lap on everyone else, we've got to assume he's on a lighter fuel load than Ilott, Wirtz, Rossi and co. So it'll be a matter of time before Grosjean does come in, but what's important to know is the pit window. When is the best time to pit? Now, Grosjean, we would think, is not going to be the only driver on a two-slot strategy, so he's got to hope that a fair few drivers behind him are doing the same thing.
We have seen a few differing strategies across the course of the season so far. In Taupo, we had a variety of different pit strategies, and in the end, in the League 2 race in Taupo, it was a LaRousse 1-2. Callum Ilott coming home ahead of Alexander Rossi. They absolutely nailed their pit strategy that day. And Alain McNish putting in a good job in a Scuderia Coloni to come home in 3rd place. It's a very interesting thing. And oh, we've got another blow up there. We're riding aboard with Alexander Wirtz, which means that it must be Callum Ilott that is falling out of the Grand Prix. The winner of the opening race in Taupo is now out of the Sepang Grand Prix. We're looking at Cristiano De Mata making a move on, I think that was Marcus Winkelhock. Yes, it was. Winkelhock losing 16th position there. Callum Ilott, he was on course for another good haul of points today, and he has now fallen by the wayside and is out of this Grand Prix. That has promoted Alexander Wirtz into 2nd place. Rossi is into 3rd, so we still have a LaRousse on for a podium here. It is still early days though. We're only on lap 9 out of 40. We've already had a few retirements. We could see a few more yet. First of all, we had Jose Maria Lopez falling out for an unknown issue. We didn't see what happened to him. And oh, Callum Ilott's getting in the way of both of the Colonis here. That's not really on from the Brit. He should be pulling off to the side of the road. And oh, he's massively getting in the way there of Perry McCarthy. Alan McNish had already gone through, but McCarthy's struggling to find a way through. Will Stevens now makes a move on the Brits as well. And the Coloni team, they're not going to be at all happy with that. I imagine they're going to go and have a word with the stewards about that one. How did you read that, Tom?
I think Kyle will have the book thrown at him by the stewards for that. I mean, that was really careless. I mean, that could have been a frightening accident through such a high-speed area of the racetrack. And you can see he's pulled off now to the right-hand side. So he should have been pulling off at least half a minute ago. And I don't think Ilott's going to be walking away without a slap on the wrist. And maybe a fine coming his way or something, maybe even a little bit more severe.
If we get any news of the stewards' decision, that one, we will let you know and post everything onto the fandom page that we have for the Retro Racing Managers League. The link is in the description of this video. You can go and find out what different championships we run and find out the championship standings. as well as the Grand Prix World Series, our main event is the Formula 1 Championship. We started off in the 1990 Championship with the actual teams. And oh, there's another engine blowout there. These engine problems keep interrupting what I'm talking about here. I believe that was a life. I think the life had gone from that engine, maybe. We're looking at Marcus Fingerhock up the road. It looks like Mark Blundell. Yes, Tom, thank you very much. I'm pretty sure it was a life. I just wasn't sure which one. But the life has gone from Blundell's car, and he's now going to drop out of this Grand Prix. That's going to put Dario Franchitti in the second HRT into 14th place, the only HRT left now after Adrian Suttle's earlier engine problem. And yeah, Blundell joins Lopez, Suttle and Ilott on the sidelines. And we're now looking at Alexander Wurz, who's now 10.2 behind Romain Grosjean. Blundell, more sensibly than Callum Ilott, he's staying off the racing line. His car is on fire. He'll try and find a marshal's post as soon as he can. So Blundell doing the right thing and staying off the racing line. But yeah, Tom, I think I might agree with you that Callum Ilott might be having the steward's book thrown at him for that one. As I was saying about where you can find all of the information, the Retro Racing Managers League fandom page, which is linked in the description of this video. We run the Formula 1 World Championship starting off in 1990, working with the actual teams of that season, working with the actual drivers, and then the team principals who take on each of the teams. They then have the power. Do they want to keep the drivers they had in 1990? Or do they want to maybe spend their budget and sign a new driver? We recently completed that first season. We're now looking to 1991 with a lot of changes afoot. I think one of the more noticeable being that Ayrton Senna is off to Williams for 1991. Very interesting there. If you want to know more about it, check out our fandom page, check out the rest of our YouTube channel, and maybe even get involved. Send us an email at downforceuk@hotmail.co.uk. Do you want to be a team manager? Do you want to take a part in this? Come and join us. It's always a good laugh. And Tom, I'm a team manager as well in this. You're a team manager. Well, you can vouch for what an exciting championship this is.
Yeah, and the good thing about it is that anyone can win. You can see there's a move there from what I believe is Scott Speed in the Riel down the inside. The Von Mattel, what looks like Cristiano De Matta, so that's Speed up into 15th place. You can see Alex Wurz in second, in a comfortable second place in the Leighton House. He's 11 seconds behind Grosjean at the moment though.
So Grosjean extending his lead. I'm thinking tyre strategies might be quite prevalent here. Grosjean trying to build up a gap. It's up to 10.8 seconds. So Grosjean may be going for a two-stopper in this race, while the likes of Wurz and Rossi might be going for one-stoppers. We haven't yet seen what the differing fuel loads are on these cars, but on the assumption of Grosjean's speed comparative to anyone else, I'm thinking, Tom, Grosjean must be on a two-stopper, while Wurz, Rossi et al. Are all on a one-stopper.
Yeah, I think Grosjean's trying to bridge out the gap as far as he can, so that he's not getting held up behind traffic. We will know that he will be on fresher tyres. He will be on fresher tyres when he comes back out, but it's just how long will it take for him to get by those slower cars? Only time will tell. You can see the field is beginning to space out now, so the race is very much calming down in this League 2 race. It's not been too hectic so far, Topher. The drivers seem to be behaving better than what we saw last time in Adelaide, where we saw about half of the field spinning off or binning it into the barriers. You can see there's another move there. Franchitti round the outside of Fingerhock. It's Fingerhock who has the upper hand on the HRT, and De Matta has got himself back in front of the Riel of Scott Speed. So a couple of position changes there from outside the points. So just a quick rundown on the race order. Grosjean leading by 12 seconds over Alex Wurz in second place, and it's the LaRousse of Alex Rossi. So two Alexes in the top three, and it's Sam Bird in fourth place, followed by Alan McNish and Perry McCarthy in the Colonis.
Sorry to interrupt you, Tom. Alan McNish dropping out of 5th place. His teammate McCarthy now takes the position to keep the Coloni honour in the points. But Alan McNish out of the race with an apparent technical issue. We haven't quite seen what that was. We haven't seen any smoke bellowing out, so maybe a transmission problem there for the Coloni. We'll have to wait to get confirmation of that one later on. But yeah, Alan McNish, who did a fantastic job in the earlier parts of this championship. He took home a 3rd place in Taupo. He's now out here in Sepang. And another one bites the dust in this race. You were saying, Tom, about how attritional Adelaide was. That was let's say a bit of a unique event was that one in Adelaide. We haven't seen anywhere near that attrition so far here in Sepang, and I hope we don't. We want to see some decent racing all the way to the end. And as you said, Tom, we've got a few gaps between a lot of the drivers, so we're looking more to the pit strategies here, and I think the main battle here is going to be where Grosjean comes out when he makes his first stop.
Yep, and I think he's going to have a lot of pace in that Pacific when he comes back out. So I think the battle at the moment is going to be between Wirtz, Rossi and Bird for second place. You can see the Real of... I think, who was that was just gone past there?
That is Mike Conway getting past Will Stevens in the Real. And Edward Hunter. I think you mentioned earlier, Tom, that Scott Speed was driving a Real. He's actually in the Modena. Edward Hunter pointing out that Scott Speed is not a Real driver. He's actually got Mike Conway and Neil Jarney on board. And so far, Ed, not that I want to put the jinx on you, but having a pretty decent race. Mike Conway running in 7th place. Having now lost out to Will Stevens again, a little bit of back and forth between those two. And Neil Jarney currently fighting with Danny Kvyat for the last points paying position, so some points are a definite possibility for the Real team here today. Roman Grosjean flying out in front, now 13.1 ahead of Alexander Wirtz. And here is Vincenzo Sospiri having a look down the inside of one of the Force Indias. I think that might have been Martin Brundle that he was going past. Yeah, Brundle is ahead of Zanardi out of the Force Indias, running line astern down in 20th and 21st. And Grosjean, he looks so comfortable in that Pacific at the moment. He didn't actually start the season for the Pacific team, if you remember, Tom. So, Carter McColeman elected to run Daniel Kvyat alongside Timo Glock in the opening race to evaluate both of his drivers. And then for round 2, took Glock out and put in Roman Grosjean and evaluates him in a race seat. He's elected to keep on Kvyat and Grosjean, and so far, Tom, that decision to bring in Grosjean on a more permanent basis, that's paying off for the Canadian.
Yeah, and just because Grosjean is in Glock's seat...
And Grosjean's in the pits. Sorry, Tom. Grosjean has just come into the pits now, so here is where the pit strategies are going to play out. And we reckon it's around about 25 to 30 seconds for a pit stop around here, which would put Grosjean, I reckon, around about maybe Sato sort of territory. We'll have to wait and see how good a job the Pacific pit crew does. There is Nick Heifeld now up into 21st place. Heifeld's already been through the pits once. He had a broken front wing earlier on. Dropped down to last, is now up to 21st again. Effectively last of the remaining runners as everyone else behind him has retired. Grosjean is out of the pits now, just behind Sato. So our prediction for a pit stop time was more or less on the money there, Tom. Grosjean out in 8th place. Still got a good chance of winning this race. And now we wait to see when new race leader Alexander Wirtz is going to come into the pits.
So Grosjean less than a second behind Sato. We saw Robert Wickens coming into the pits, as is Martin Brundle in the Force India. Meanwhile, Alex Wirtz inherits the lead ahead of Alex Rossi in 2nd place. Then it's Sam Bird and Perry McCarthy in 4th, and then Will Stevens in 5th position. Robert Wickens making it 2 Leighton Houses in the top 6 so far, but a lot of these drivers are still yet to pit.
So this is going to get very interesting over the next few laps. Grosjean looks like he's on a 2-stop strategy. And is the likes of Wirtz and Rossi and Bird also on 2-stop strategies, or are they going to go further into the race and try and do it on a 1-stopper? The comparative speed of them compared to Grosjean would suggest they are on the 1-stopper. And here is Alexander Wirtz. We haven't seen his fuel load yet, but he's got a sizable gap now to Alexander Rossi. I think he's pretty comfortable there with a gap of 2.5 seconds. Motorsport Mike in the comments asking what happened to Sutil. Well, so far we have 5 retirements from this race, the first of which was Jose Maria Lopez for an undiagnosed problem. We didn't actually see on camera what happened to him, so we will give you confirmation of that later on. And then Adrian Sutil, the man in question there, he retired with a water leak. And Alex Zanardi has now joined that retirement list. The Force India pulls off to the side of the circuit. We haven't seen what the problem with him was, but it looks to be possibly a transmission issue. There's no smoke billowing out. There's no water pouring out of there, so I'm guessing that is a transmission issue. And yeah, there's now 1 Force India left in this race. Just to finish off the list of retirees so far, Lopez and Sutil are out. Callum Ilott had a water leak as well, dropping out of 2nd place. So a podium falling away there for the LaRousse team. Rossi still has a chance of getting it for that team and getting some more points for Will Knight, but we'll have to wait and see how the rest of the race pans out. Mark Blundell in the Life had an engine problem. Alain Bernish, he pulled off to the side of the circuit in the Coloni out of 5th place. And now Alex Zanardi becomes the 6th driver to retire from the League 2 Sepang Grand Prix.
I think Zanardi's problem, Topher, you saw the car lifting off the ground, so I wonder if it was more like a puncture rather than the transmission. But we'll find out at the end of this one what the problem actually was. But Grosjean has crucially got past Sato, and now he's on the tail of Robert Wickens' Leighton House. Now, how long will it be before he gets past him? Now, this is interesting, because can Wickens hold up Grosjean to favour his teammate Wirtz, who's out in the lead currently?
That would be a good strategy for Leighton House to pull off at this point, but Grosjean is on the fresher tyres. He will have the speed advantage over the Canadian. Robert Wickens, he's a hard defender in himself. And we now cut to that battle, actually. Grosjean is down the main straight. He's got out of the slipstream of the Leighton House. Does he have the power to get alongside? Yes, he does. He outbrakes the Canadian into the final corner. Grosjean makes the move into 5th place, and he's now chasing after the Modena of Will Stevens. Grosjean making the most of his fresher rubber. He's not fussing about in the traffic. He is on course to win this race, and he wants it. Carter McColman wants it as well. He needs to get his season up and running if he's going to stand any chance of winning the championship. The Pacific team was one of the pre-season favourites heading into this championship, but the results have just been a bit hard to come by for them. And Mike Conway there making a little bit of a meal of the final corner, but he's able to keep it going in 16th place. Marino Sato is into the pits as well as Marcus Winkelhock. It looks like Sato's now on his way out of the pits in what will be 15th, maybe 16th if he loses out to the Andrea Moda of Sospiri, which he has done. So Sato drops out of a points position into 16th place, but with an earlier pit stop he can make use of that fresher rubber and get his way back up there when everyone else pits as well. Will Stevens here in 4th place, having another good run in the Modena. He wants to add to the podium that he got in Adelaide, where he finished 2nd behind race winner Adrian Sutil. So Will Stevens, a late entry into the Grand Prix World Series in place of AJ Foy to that team. But Tom, Will Stevens could potentially be a dark horse for this championship if he can get consistent points finishes.
Yeah, and I think Stevens is going to be one of those drivers who will not be the fastest, but most definitely someone to pick up the pieces where other teams end up struggling in races. But he's doing a fine job so far. He's less than 2 seconds in front of Grosjean, who's so if Stevens can maintain his pace, he could be on course for another good result. You've got a sore throat coming there, Topher?
Just a little bit, yeah. Just need a swig of water there. It's all fine. But here is the top 3 you can see now. Alexander Wirtz in the lead, 2.5 seconds ahead of Alexander Rossi. That gap staying more or less the same, which would suggest that they are on a similar fuel load. Also, Spiri having a bit of a moment there. He's got Marino Sato behind him. Sato now on the fresher tyres, and he won't want to waste any time getting past the Andrea Moda because Sato's on for another haul of points here today. He's in the slipstream of the Andrea Moda now, and surely he's going to get the move done here. And yeah, he pulls alongside the Andrea Moda, and that is going to be Marino Sato past Spiri up into 15th place. There is a gap now of about 6 seconds to Taki Inoue up the road, so Sato, he's now got a bit of clear air to work with to try and build up as much of a gap as he can. Maybe even use the undercut to jump a few positions, possibly into the top 5. We'll have to wait and see how that one pans out. Here is Dario Franchitti and the sole remaining HRT. Adrian Sutil dropping out earlier, and he's under pressure here from Cristiano De Mata in the Formital. De Mata getting up then. Oh, there's a problem! There's a problem for Franchitti. That is both HRTs out. The lack of development into the reliability of that car has now doubly come back to bite John Munro. He's got a fast car underneath him, but without any developments into the reliability, he's now facing a double DNF in this race, and we're only on lap 17. So a real shame there for Dario Franchitti. He's going to drop out of the points and out of this race. He gets out of the way of Scott Speed and Perry McCarthy like the gentleman that he is, and he will pull over to the side of the circuit as soon as he can. Sam Bird there running in 3rd place behind Alexander Rossi, and there goes Franchitti to the side of the circuit. A real shame there for John Munro and the team. They did a good job in the power upgrades of this car, but if you don't have a car that can get to the end, you're not going to score points, Tom.
Not a good day for John Munro's team. Both cars out of the race. That's a huge setback to potentially his title challenge. They've definitely got a car to do it. I have to say, Dario Franchitti isn't exactly on the same pace as Suthill. Now you can see Sam Bird running high, flying high in third place in the sack speed. Maybe to see where he can come back out, because I don't think he's had a good start to the season really as Sam Bird, or has he? Because I'm just trying to have a look on the standings at the moment. No, he's in the 2 championship races so far. He's not finished any of them, so he needs a good haul of points here, does Sam Bird, to open his account for the campaign. You can see Alex Rossi.
Sorry, go on, Tom.
Yeah, I was just going to say Alex Rossi in second place, behind the Leighton House of Sam Bird. Further behind, Roman Grosjean has got by Will Stevens, so Roman Grosjean has got 10 seconds to make up on Sam Bird, so he can make good use of some clean air to get himself back into prime position for the race win later on. And I have to say, Topher, providing Grosjean does not have any melodies with his Pacific, he's got a great chance of winning this one.
Well, the key word there, Tom, was if. We've seen quite a lot of retirement so far across the course of the 2.5 races we've had so far in this championship. It's not over until that checkered flag falls. I think you're right, Tom. Grosjean does look like the odds-on favourite to win this race now. He's bypassed Will Stevens for 4th place and has some clear air to work with now. The leading trio still has to pit, but then after they do pit, they will be on the fresher tyres, while Grosjean will have to make one more pit stop. I think it's pretty clear now that this leading trio is going to go onto a one-stop strategy. We're on lap 19 of 40, so we're almost at the halfway mark here, so that must be a one-stopper now. So it's going to be that toss-up between having the fresher tyres at the end or spending less time in the pit lane. Grosjean, he's showing all of the speed that he showed in his Formula 1 career. Some would say maybe a little bit unlucky to not ever get a Grand Prix victory across the course of his career in Formula 1. He definitely had good chances to, especially in his Lotus days, when he was almost on the same pace as the dominant Red Bulls. But yeah, it just never quite happened for the Frenchman, and recently having a bit of an unfortunate end to his career. He's now off to IndyCar to see what he can do over stateside, and we're giving him a chance here in a Grand Prix World Series. And that is Alexander Rossi off the track. The second LaRousse falls out of this race, and I'm not sure what that was. It could have been a driver error maybe there for the American. And
right rear,
yes, you're right, Tom. You are right, Tom. His right rear has gone, so it looks like that is a suspension issue for the LaRousse. And the team that took a 1-2 finish in the opening race of the season now has a double DNF to their name. That is hard luck there for Will Knight and his team. And that just means there's one less person for Roman Grosjean to get by later on. Sam Bird here has gone up into second position. He's 5 seconds behind our race leader, Alexander Wurz. And we were mentioning about attrition earlier, Tom. It's not been to the same extent as Adelaide, but, you know, it's coming. Oh, and Danny Kvyat is out as well. So a problem there once again for the Russian driver in the Pacific. And there he is. And it's an engine problem for the Pacific. So once again, they put more of their pre-season upgrade money into the power of the car, not so much into reliability. And it's showing. And surely that is going to be a worry now for Roman Grosjean, who's looking like the odds-on favourite to win this race.
Yep, and Alex Wurz has come into the pits for his first pit stop. We expect it to be his only one. So Sam Bird leads the Sepang Grand Prix in the League 2 race. Roman Grosjean back up into second. And Will Stevens in the Modena in third place. Now, this is interesting, Topher, because Stevens and Speed, I think they are, racing for the Modena team. Just trying to jog my memory. Yes, they are. They've got a good opportunity to perhaps get into the lead of the team's championship with both HRTs out and both LaRousse cars out.
Yeah, it's absolutely fascinating how this is going to pan out. This race is not done yet. We still have halfway to go. Sam Bird, I'm sure, will be pitting either this lap or next if he's on a similar strategy to what Alexander Wurz was, which would put Roman Grosjean back into the lead with a gap of 3 seconds over Will Stevens. Marino Sato there is looking to make a move past Taki Inoue. He's used his fresher tyres to catch up to the back of the Andrea Moda, and he goes through into 11th. Sato looking good for some points again today. It would be his second race out of 2 where he scores points if he can get the job done. Here is Roman Grosjean with that gap of 3 seconds over Will Stevens there in the background. we need to look at what Sam Bird is doing, because I think he is pitting this lap or the next at the latest. And there is Sam Bird's teammate, Nick Heidfeld, who's made his way up into 14th position after his enforced pit stop on lap 1. He came to blows in the pack at turn 1. We don't really know who he hit, actually, but he came away with a broken front wing, had to pit, but he's now doing a fine job to get himself up into 14th position. The speed of the Zach speed is there, it is apparent, but do they necessarily have the reliability? They are still having both cars in this race. But we'll have to wait and see how that one pans out. Heidfeld hoping that his bad luck for the day has already happened in that earlier crash. Can he make his way up into the points? We'll have to wait and see how that one pans out. Scott Speed there with a bit of a lock up there, coming through the third to last corner. He's now going through the penultimate corner. Looks like there's no problem there for the Modena. Just a little bit of a drive error, but he's back going again in 9th place. And one person I want to mention here, Tom, in 7th place is the fundamental of Cristiano De Mata. Now the team manager there, Ewan Gale, he's sort of doing a Dave Goddard this season. If you didn't see season 1, Dave Goddard, the manager of the 40 Corsa team in League 1, he went into season 1 with absolutely no intentions of doing well. Wasn't really taking it all seriously. His only aim was to be the worst car on the grid. And Dave Goddard got the job done for season 1. 40 Corsa, he only took away a handful of points and finished 13th and last. He's taking it a bit more seriously this time round in season 2. But Ewan Gale, Tom, he wanted Fondmetal to be the worst team on the grid, but De Mata, he's doing a fine job to run up in 7th place.
Fondmetal having a better race of it, with Cristiano De Mata up there in 7th place. I don't think he's pitted yet though, Topher, so there's that to come. And we saw Nick Heidfeld pulling a move, or an offer move I should say, on the Andrea Moda of Vincenzo Sospiri for 13th place. So whilst it may not feel it's been as good of a race for Heidfeld, it's definitely better than some so far.
And we're looking through the live chat of comments that we have. If you want to get in touch, drop us a comment into the live chat. Edward Hunter thinking that Roman Grosjean, Mike Conway and Marino Sato are on 2-stop strategies while everyone else seems to be on a 1-stop strategy. I think he's pretty much spot on there. Grosjean very clearly on a 2-stop strategy. At the moment making that work. But is that going to pay dividends later on when everyone else pits for fresher rubber while he starts to wear out his tyres? We still have a lot more to go in this race, Tom. And while Grosjean does look like he's a favourite for this race at the moment, it is still anyone's game.
Well, you say Grosjean's the favourite. He seems to be losing time a little bit, is Grosjean. I wonder if he's made a mistake somewhere. But just keep an eye on the gap between Bird and Grosjean. Now, Bird is going to be the first of the two to be pitting. It's just whether Grosjean on his last stint will be able to close in on Bird once he comes in for his last sub. You can see Robert Wickens in the Leighton-House pitting, and he'll drop outside the points, but I'd like to think he'll be back in there by the time this race is over. You can see Grosjean taking a 10th out of Bird's lead, so he's beginning to come back in slightly, is the Frenchman. And I cannot wait for this the last few laps between Bird and Grosjean. It's going to be a nail-biting finale, but what's more important, say, for his points?
Yes, absolutely. Points mean prizes in the Grand Prix World Series. At the end of this race, we are going to have the upgrade window where each of the teams, they take their collective prize money across the opening 3 rounds and they put the money into making the car better. But do they go the route of improving the power of the car? Do they want to get more reliability out of the car? That is for each team manager to decide for themselves. Which way do they want to go? The likes of Pacific, for example, they've already got a fast car. So maybe this time around they want to put a bit more into the reliability of the car to make sure they can finish races. It's completely up to the team managers to decide what they do. So when we come to the next race, which will be held at Yeongam in South Korea, we might see a bit of a different pecking order to what we have seen so far. It's absolutely fascinating to find out what each of the team managers are going to do. And looking at Sam Bird there in the lead, he's going further into this race than I expected. I predicted about 3 or 4 laps ago that he would be pitting at the end of that lap. But no, he's still going there in the lead, and he's actually pulling away from Roman Grosjean. So he's on tyres that are 23 laps old, and he's still pulling away from the Pacific, although Grosjean might be going a bit easier now to preserve his tyres and make sure that he gets to the end. Grosjean does really need to push her, and there's Sam Bird making a bit of a mistake, so maybe the tyre wear is starting to play a part with that Zach speed now. So Sam Bird, he might be pitting anytime soon. Radioing into the mechanics, say I'm coming in now. We'll have to wait and see if he does that at the end of this lap, but surely he's got to be pitting soon. Those tyres must be absolutely screaming to come off the car. And Grosjean, he's fallen away a bit more from Bird. 9.1 seconds now the gap. But with the Frenchman having already pitted, he doesn't need to pit just yet.
I think, just thinking about it, Topher, Bird is on a lighter fuel load right now than Grosjean is. So, putting that into perspective, that could well explain why the pace of Bird is similar to what Grosjean is. You can see Grosjean dropping back another couple of tenths, so you could be right with Grosjean preserving his tyres a little bit, but he won't want to back off too much, as Will Stevens in third place will be looming in behind him. And when Sam Bird comes in, he's got to hope that Bird is caught up in some traffic, which would very much play into Grosjean's hands later on. But yeah, we can call about strategies at the moment, but it's more important about getting to the end of this one.
So we've worked out that a fuel stop, and here is Will Stevens coming in now from third place. A pit stop is around about 25 to 30 seconds around this track. So when Sam Bird pits, he will come out around about Neil Jarney, maybe just behind the Swiss Indian. But I think Jarney has also yet to pit. I don't think he's come into the pit lane just yet. Will Stevens is now in for his one and only pit stop out of third place. So Grosjean now doesn't have the Englishman breathing down his neck. Bird and Jarney have both carried on for another lap. Wirtz, they're in third place. He has come in for his pit stop, so he is now definitely on course for a podium. Should the Leighton House remain in this race, which we all hope it does, because Leighton House, they need a good result here. They haven't had the most reliable car, but it has been fairly quick. So some good points would be needed there for Chris Cavani and the Leighton House team. They've also got Robert Wickens down in 9th place. So Wickens, at the moment, making it a double points finish for Leighton House, but we still have about 16 laps to go here in Sepang. Here is our race leader, Sam Bird, still continuing around the circuit, and Taki Inoue there, getting it all wrong there out of turn 2. I don't think he's been into the pit lane yet either. He's up in 11th place. Earlier on, he was fighting around about 20th position, so I don't think he's pitted yet. We can expect him through the pit lane anytime soon. Behind him is Nick Heidfeld, who did pit at the end of lap 1. We're not really sure what fuel strategy he's going to be on now. I don't think the team will have fueled him to go all the way to the end, so we might expect him into the pits one more time. And here is Sam Bird coming into the pits out of the race lead. So we were expecting him to drop in around about Neil Jarney in 4th place. So Sam Bird going onto the fresher tyres, maybe he can make some headway into the current podium position that Alexander Wirtz occupies. We'll have to wait and see where Bird comes out of the pits there. Grosjean now reassumes the lead of this race, and we believe is going to the end. Wirtz should take 2nd place here, and there we go. He is going through on the main straight now to start his 25th lap, and he is now past Bird for 2nd place. So we're looking at the graphic, see where Bird is coming out, and it looks like he's got out. Yeah, he's out in 3rd because Jarney has just come into the pits himself. So Bird now on the freshest tyres of the top 3, 16 laps to go here in Malaysia. He's into 3rd place, and he can set off after Alexander Wirtz in the Leighton House. This one is not yet over, Tom.
Oh, and Grosjean has got to pull out the best, I would say 6 laps of his season so far to get in front of Bird. Well, maybe not get in front of him when he comes out, but most definitely put himself in a good position to be challenging for the race win. I'll be interested to see how far Wirtz goes before he comes in, because I can't remember what lap Wirtz pitted. But if Wirtz is one stopping, then I would think that he's going to try and go to the end like Bird is now.
And Nick Heidfeld does now come into the pit lane. We mentioned him just a moment ago. He's decided to come in, put some fresh rubber on, and go to the end. So he is now dropped out of the top 15. He was making some fine progress earlier on to get through the order. As we look at Wickens coming very close to the back of Mike Conway there in the Real. Both of the Reals having quite a strong race here today. Conway's in 7th place. And Jarney, he's now challenging Taki Inoue for 10th. We think Inoue still has to pit. But Jarney has now come in for his pit stop. So when he dispatches the Andrea Moda, there will be both Reals into the top 10. That would be a good result for Edward Hunter and his team. Here is the new race leader, Romain Grosjean, with a gap of 12.8 seconds ahead of Alexander Wirtz, who is a further 3.8 ahead of Sam Bird. Now we're now looking at Martin Brundle there in the Force India. He started off the season with the Life team and finished 4th in the season opener. Tom, it was a bit of a strange decision by Andrew Sanson of the Life team to drop Martin Brundle after a 4th place finish. It's a very strange decision, but he's now found a new home with Force India.
Well, to be honest, I found that rather strange. I mean, his excuse for it was because he felt that Martin Brundle's 4th place came from just luck, which I struggle to believe. And now Brundle's in a more inferior car, that is the Force India, where he should be higher up the pecking order in either, a Eurobrun or a HRT. So yeah, it's a very strange decision. And did you say Andrew Sampson who made the switch there?
Yeah, Andrew Sampson, the team manager of the Life team. But let's be a bit fair to Andrew Sampson here. He has put Marino Sato into the car, he's got the youth advantage over Martin Brundle. I mean, Brundle clearly has experience, but he's now into his 60s now, I think. I think he's 60 or 61 now. So age not really on Martin Brundle's side. So he's brought in a new young gun of Marino Sato. And straight away that paid dividends as Marino Sato finished 4th in his debut race. And he's now on course for more points. So it might have been a bit of a strange excuse, let's say, to drop Martin Brundle from the team. And Heidfeld is in again. That's his 3rd time through the pits. He came in at the end of lap 1, as we said earlier, for a front wing change. He came in a lap or 2 ago for what looked like a scheduled pit stop to top up the car with fuel and put some fresh tyres on. And he's now in another time. So has he had some sort of issue there? We'll have to wait and see if anything comes of that one. But yeah, a 3rd time through the pits for Nick Heidfeld has not really been the strongest race for the German, has it, Tom?
No, I wonder if he's had some electrical issues shortly after the 2nd stop, and now he's in for a 3rd time. You can see Sam Bird, his teammate, setting a new fastest lap, which is important because you get a championship point for getting the fastest lap. And he'll be on the tail of Wirtz's Leighton very shortly because he's on much fresher tyres than the Austrian is.
Well, there is Nick Heidfeld out of the pits again, and now a lap down on our race leader, Roman Grosjean. And I'm going to be fascinated to see the progress of Sam Bird now in this race. He's closed down the gap to Alexander Wirtz. He's now 1.3 seconds behind the Leighton House. Bird on the fresher rubber and going to the end. He should dispatch the Austrian within the next couple of laps unless Wirtz puts up some amazing defence. But this is a track where you can overtake, and Will Stevens has pulled off to the side of the circuit there. So a retirement there, and has he got beached? It looks like he's trying to move a bit, but I'm wondering if he's got beached on the curbing somewhere. He's now climbed out of the car and is out of the race, but that looks a bit of a strange one. Oh, now I can see past the marshal. Looks like his left rear suspension has collapsed. So another suspension issue here today, Tom. That is the 2nd one after the same fate befell Alexander Rossi. And Will Stevens, he was looking good for a points finish today, and he becomes, I think our 10th retirement today.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big blow there to the Modena team because they could have been coming away here with a good haul of points and potentially leading the team's championship. I'll tell you one team that does favour is Cologne, because although Alan McNish is out of the race, you've got Perry McCarthy in 4th, and if anything happens to Grosjean, Wirtz or Bird up front, they could be in the top 3 in the team's championship.
Tom, sorry to cut across you. I just spotted on the graphic. I think we might have a bit of an issue for Sam Bird because he was right behind Alexander Wirtz. But if you look now on the graphic, he's over 10 seconds behind the Leighton House. So I don't know if he's had some sort of reliability issue or maybe made a mistake somewhere. He has now come through the next sector beam, and he's 12 seconds behind Alexander Wirtz. So he must have made a mistake somewhere. So Bird was making fantastic progress into the gap that Alexander Wirtz had over him. We're right on board with Bird now, so he is still in this race and still running. I reckon he must have made a mistake somewhere, possibly gone across a gravel trap or gone wide somewhere. Let's just hope he doesn't have any damage that will affect his run to a possible podium here. As before then, he was looking good to get past Alex Wirtz. Maybe even a close-up on the gap of Grosjean. I mean, Tom, we're now not going to find that out. It looks like Bird has made a driver error somewhere.
Yep, and Grosjean's lost time because Nick Heidfeld has just unlapped him. So Grosjean, as well as Bird losing time, Grosjean's losing time. So this is all very much falling into Wirtz's hands at the moment. How long will it be before Grosjean comes in? Because he's going to be right on the tail of Bird once he comes out from his last stop. There's no doubt he'll be out in front of McCarthy, but is Grosjean going to have enough time to make up the ground on Wirtz and Bird in order to win this race.
So we were saying earlier that Grosjean looked to be the odds-on favourite to win this race, but as the pit strategies have transpired, maybe not so much the case anymore. So Bird is now closing back in that gap again. He's now 19.3 behind the lead of Grosjean. So when Grosjean does come in for his second stop, which should be, I reckon, within the next 3 or 4 laps, he should come out in third place behind Bird and ahead of McCarthy. And if he can stay ahead of McCarthy, that's going to be crucial. Because if Grosjean gets stuck behind the Coloni, that's going to cost him some time. And he needs all of the time that he can get out of this race. Because Bird is closing in quite quickly now, actually. The gap's now down to 18.7 between first and third. So if Grosjean can get out ahead of McCarthy when it comes to his second pit stop, then he can start to work on chasing down the leading duo. But yeah, it's not clear-cut anymore as to who's going to win this race.
The highest driver in the championship that's still running is Marcus Fingerhock in 12th place, because the top 5 drivers in the championship are all out of this one. Topher.
Oh, that is interesting. I hadn't clocked on that one. That's a very good spot, Tom. So yeah, we could see a good amount of rejiggling in the championship order here. We are only on the 3rd race, so there is going to be some obvious points changes in the championship anyway, and position changes. But who's going to take away the maximum points out of this one? Grosjean, he has the 8.9 second advantage at the moment, but still has to make one more pit stop. Wirtz and Bird have both made their one and only stops of this race, barring any further mechanical issues. And Grosjean, he was drafted into the Pacific team in place of Timo Glock to evaluate him for a seat in Adelaide. He impressed Carter Coleman enough to be able to get a full-time race seat. He's paying that faith now by leading the race, but is he going to win? Oh, this is going to get so interesting, Tom. I can't call this one.
Yeah, and you can see Bird recovering from his error earlier on. He's now just under 9 seconds behind Wirtz. Now, I reckon Bird will be on the tail of Wirtz before the end of the race, but is he going to run out of time? Only time will tell, really. And Grosjean, you would think he's going to be pitting very, very soon, but how late is he going to leave it before he comes in? Now, if he's coming in for a last splash and dash, it's not going to be very, very long of a pit stop. So I reckon that Grosjean is going to be right on the tail of Bird very shortly once he comes out from his final pit stop.
It's going to be very interesting to see how that one transpires. We're looking at Alexander Wirtz in second place. He is 8.2 seconds off of the lead here. And in the live chat, we have actually just had the Pacific Grand Prix team manager pop up, Carter McColeman. Hello, Carter. He's asking after Daniel Kvyat and what's happened to him, so he must have only just joined the broadcast. So, Carter, you've got one driver leading at the moment, and the other one, Daniel Kvyat, he's unfortunately out. He retired with the Water League earlier on in this race. I'm trying to remember where he was in the race, Tom. I think he was within 9th or 10th position, something like that, in the lower reaches of the points, but not really on the speed of Grosjean up to that point. That is one retirement for the Pacific team, while the other leading this race and could very well take the victory depending on how well his team does when he comes in for a second pit stop later on.
So you got Sam Bird continuing. Look at the gap now between Bird and Grosjean. You can see Bird narrowing the gap between himself and Grosjean to 15.5 seconds. So as Bird is closing in on Wirtz, he's also closing in on Grosjean as well.
So interesting to see how Sam Bird is going to continue to make headway into Wirtz. He would have already passed the Leighton House if he hadn't made that mistake earlier on. And who knows where he would have been in relation to Grosjean, but as it is, Sam Bird did make that mistake. But he still has a chance to win this race. We'll have to see how the rest of it pans out. Looking down the rest of the order at the moment, Grosjean in the lead, but we believe has to come in for one more pit stop. Alexander Wirtz in second and Sam Bird in third. They've made one pit stop each, and we believe they'll be their only pit stops. Perry McCarthy doing a good job in the Scuderia Coloni in fourth place. They've had a pretty strong start to the season, actually. At the start of the season, Tom, we weren't expecting too much out of Pacific because their drivers were, let's say, in the higher reaches of the average ages. But Alan McNish, he's already got a podium out of this season, and Perry McCarthy's always been there or thereabouts, showing that age, while it may be a factor to some people, not so much for the Coloni team.
Well, whatever the age is, if you're good enough, you're good enough. And clearly, the Coloni team are showing that they can take the fight to the top teams in this category. We're not expecting them to be winning races, but they are going to be going there with this sort of underdog attitude to prove that they can, sneak into that elusive League One category for next year. You can see Robert Wickens right behind the Coloni of Owen McCarthy, and it's going to be an interesting end to the race. It's been a good race for Leighton House with second and fifth. That'll be a good haul of points for Chris Caverney's boys.
That'll be a very good haul of points indeed for the Leighton House team. Martin Brundle getting it a bit wrong into turn 1 there. And there have been some rumours in the paddock actually, Tom, that Leighton House team boss Chris Caverney is thinking about making the switch to bring in reserve driver Will Power in place of Robert Wickens. The rule in place is that you can only change drivers during the upgrade window. So that is a rule that was actually brought in very recently. At the start of the season, team managers were allowed to make changes after the opening race, just to test new drivers if they wanted to, but the rule now is they can only change drivers within the upgrade window. And with Wickens now putting in a strong performance and closing down Perry McCarthy for 4th place, Chris Caverney, he might be thinking, well, do I actually want to get rid of Robert Wickens? And Wickens has now made the move into 4th place. So both Leighton Houses running very strongly here in 2nd and 4th. Is this a lineup that is around to stay, maybe? Chris might still want to evaluate Will Power in a race seat at some point this season. But if he brings in the Australian Formula IndyCar champion, he will have to do it for a 3-race stint instead of a 1-race stint. So it's a bit of a gamble if you want to make a driver change now. And the Wickens is making that decision even more difficult now for Chris Caverney now that he's putting in strong performances.
Yeah, and you saw Marino Salter a moment ago getting past Cristiano D'Amato down the inside into turn 1 to put his life up into 8th place. Wirtz, we just about to see him go past the 2nd sector timing beam, 12.8 seconds off the lead with just over 8 laps left. So I wonder if Bird's going to run out of time. Now, we thought Grosjean was going to be pitting for another time, but it looks as though he may choose to abandon that and go to the end on his 2nd set of tyres.
Well, it might not be his choice at the end of the day. It might depend on the fuel load that the Pacific team put in earlier on. We haven't seen what his fuel load is. So you might be spot on, Tom. He might be going to the end of the race. He's gone on to lap 33 now, so he's going on further yet. But is he coming in for a second pit stop? We thought he was earlier on, but as we get closer to the end of this race, maybe he's eked out enough. He was losing time earlier on to Sam Bird. Maybe that was whole part of the plan of preservation for Romain Grosjean, trying to make sure that he gets to the end of this race. Because I reckon if he can go to the end now, he is on to win this race. I don't think Wirtz is closing in fast enough to make any proper headway into the Pacific. Although Sam Bird, on the other hand, he's now 12.5 seconds off of the lead and only 4.4 off of Alexander Wirtz in the Leighton House. We've still got a lot of permutations to happen in this race. And looking down the order a bit more, we had Wickens pass McCarthy for 4th place there. Neil Jarney and Mike Conray running line astern for the Real team in 6th and 7th. There was Marino Sato we saw briefly trying to make a move on Cristiano D'Amato for 8th place. And Scott Speed propping up the points order in 10th place. Enrico Benaldi in 11th. He's also running a strong race in his Fondmetal, but about 12 seconds off of a points paying position here. So maybe he'll need to rely on a bit of attrition within the top 10 in the remaining 7 laps. And looking at the graphics, Sato, he was trying to make a move on D'Amato, but instead he's actually lost out to Scott Speed. So Sato is down into 10th place. Maybe his tyres are starting to let go a bit now. And he'll need to go into preservation mode in the remainder of this race. At the front, Bird is now 12.1 seconds behind the lead. He is closing in really fast, Tom.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to have enough time to catch Grosjean, but 2nd place is very much possible for the Brit. So, can he do it? You know, it's just when he gets on the tail of the Leighton House, it's just about passing him. Where's the best place to pass him? You can see Mike Conway, who I think has lost a position to Neil Yarney a moment ago and running wide a little bit, but he's got 15 seconds in hand over D'Amato in 8th. So Real on course for a double points finish with Yarney 6th and Conway 7th.
And I'm sure that Edward Hunter, the team boss there, will be on to the boys saying just keep it on the road, don't come together. We've had them overtaking each other. And what's the golden rule of motorsport? Don't hit your teammates. And at the moment it looks like the Real team hasn't done that, and they're on for a double points finish, which would be a good haul of points and a good haul of prize money there for the Real team. Vincenzo Sospiri getting it a bit wrong there, but he manages to keep his Andrea motor pointing in the right direction. Now Sospiri, he was a bit of an interesting one in the last race in Adelaide actually, because if you remember, Tom, he made a lot of mistakes in that race. He was spinning all over the place, he was locking up, but somehow he survived the attrition to come home in 5th place at the end of it all. And I don't really quite know what to think of that performance, Tom, because yeah, he was spinning all over the place, but somehow he kept out of the barrier.
Yeah, indeed. And you can see Nick Heifeld making a move on Martin Brundle for 15th. Very much for pride, really, for Nick Heifeld, but nevertheless an overtake for him. And he's probably going to run out of time to catch Sospiri, but we've still got some time left in this race. And you can see an engine failure for Enrique Bernoldi. That's his race run in the Fon Mattel. So bad news for Ewan Gale, who was on course to see both cars get to the checker flag, but not to be this time.
Well, he still has Cristiano D'Amato running in 8th place, and Taki Inoue running a bit wide there to get past Bernoldi, but he makes it through without any real drama. So Enrique Bernoldi, I think, is our 11th retiree out of this race, which would make, I believe, 16 runners left in this race. We've got Nick Heidfeld there in 15th, who will be promoted to 14th. There is now the sole remaining Fon Mattel, Bernoldi's teammate D'Amato running in 8th place. He's got Speed right behind him. Speed trying to make the most of the slipstream to get through. And there is Sato in the background. He was challenging these two earlier, but he's now fallen off the back of that particular battle. So maybe he's made a mistake somewhere, or maybe his tyres are just going off. Well, we won't really know what's going on with that life at the moment, but Sato on course for a top 10 finish here. And the gap now within the top 3 is down to 11.2 seconds. Grosjean is still continuing in the lead. So Tom, I think he might have called that one spot on. I think Grosjean has done enough to maybe go to the end of this race.
And we've still got 6 laps to go. He still needs to finish this one as well, Topher. Anything can happen from here on in. So what happened at the beginning with Sutil, Lopez, Aylott, Rossi? We saw so many of the big guns drop out earlier on, and there's still time yet for anything to change. So Grosjean just needs to take it easy at the moment. You can see Sam Bird closing in now on Alex Wirtz. The gap is now 2.1 seconds. Bird has taken out so much from Wirtz on this lap alone. So the fight for second place is far from over between these two. And I can't wait to see if Bird can get onto the back of the Leighton House and move up into second here, Topher.
We're now riding on board with Roman Grosjean, who continues on for another lap. So looking at the gap that's been between him and Wirtz hasn't really been making any headway into the gap that Grosjean has. He's been losing time to Bird, so I'm thinking that Grosjean, if he is not pitting and going on to the end of the race, he's now in the prime position to go ahead and get the job done and take victory here. But we don't know what his fuel load is. He could come in for a late splash and dash. We'll have to wait and see on that one. But if he is going to the end, I don't think Bird is going to have enough laps to get up to the back of the Pacific when he dispatches the Leighton House of Wirtz. Well, if he dispatches the Leighton House of Wirtz, because he has still been closing in, but that rate of progression from Bird has somewhat slowed in the last few laps. He's 2 seconds behind Wirtz now, and we are on lap 36 of 40, so only about 4.5 laps to go here at Sepang. So Bird, he might close in the gap a bit more to Wirtz, but is he going to have enough time to actually get the overtake done? Because I'm thinking if he does get past Wirtz, he's not going to have any time left to get after Grosjean. So yeah, we've got a few laps left here in Sepang. It's still not completely clear who's going to win this race, but Grosjean looks like he's put in an absolutely mega second stint to eke out the tyres and eke out the fuel to get to the end of the race. This could be a fantastic victory for Roman Grosjean, but we still have 4 laps left to go here in Sepang, Tom.
Yeah, and Grosjean's tyres are around about 25 laps old. Sam Bird put his tyres on around about a dozen laps later than that. So you can tell that Bird's tyres are very, you can see it on the rear wing of Wirtz now, so the gap is down to under 1.5 seconds. And I think next time round, Bird will get the job done on Wirtz, but as you say, Topher, he's going to run out of time to catch Grosjean to win this one, but I'm sure Bird would most definitely have taken second place at the beginning.
So Bird is 1.4 seconds behind Alexander Wirtz, and going across the start-finish line, the gap is now It's down to 1.2, so he's taken 3/10 out of Wirtz in that last lap. But crucially, now down the main straights, Bird is going to be within slipstream range of Alexander Wirtz. He's going to be getting that draft effect out of the back of the Leighton House, which will help him to close in even further. But on the flip side of the coin, that also means dirty air. So Bird might be taking a bit more out of his tyres now in his pursuit of the Leighton House. And Grosjean has gone on for yet another lap. So yeah, Grosjean looks like he is now going to go to the end of this race. And if he does, that is going to be an absolutely brilliant victory there for the Pacific. But we are constantly looking at this battle between Wirtz and Bird. This is the most exciting prospect on track as to who is going to finish second. We ride on board with Alexander Wirtz now. The gap is 1.2 seconds to Bird behind him. Robert Wickens, his teammate, in 4th place. He's a bit too far behind the trio to trouble the podium here. He's 36.4 seconds off the lead and 26 off of 3rd place. So it'll still be a good result for Robert Wickens. It'll be a good overall result for the Leighton House team. But at the moment, it looks like it is going to be these 3 in the top 3, but in what order?
So it's the middle part of the lap where Bird takes some gap out. You can see Taki Inoue in the pits late on now. Has he picked up an issue in the Andrea motor? It's a big shame because it was running high up to the threshold of the points, really, but falls back down to 15th place. So what a shame there for Inoue. But the good news is, Topher, both Andrea motors getting to the checkered flag.
Well, currently we've just seen a problem for Taki Inoue, and any problem that he does have, the Andrea Moda mechanics will sort that out and get him back onto the track. Inoue now a lap down on race leader Romain Grosjean, who we ride on board with now, and he's coming up to the back of Martin Brundle. Now, with only a handful of laps left to go here in Sepang, this is going to be potentially an issue for Grosjean in that he's now starting to catch some of the back markers. The next back marker after Brundle is Nick Heidfeld, who's 9 seconds up the road, so maybe not so much of a problem. But maybe Heidfeld will start to play a bit of a team game for his teammate Sam Bird. Maybe just try and back Grosjean up into this this fighting duo a bit more. I mean, Heidfeld is a bit more of a gentlemanly driver. I don't think he would, but you know, the option is there for the Zach Speed team, headed up this season by Mike Smith, coming out of Germany, taking over the German team and hiring the services of Nick Heidfeld, who was a pole setter in Season 1. He took the first ever pole position in the Grand Prix World Series. Podiums and wins were a bit more difficult to come by for Heidfeld, and he was actually replaced mid-season by Robin Frames at the Super Aguri team that was. He's now found a new home in Zach Speed alongside Sam Bird, a fellow Formula E racer, who won the last Formula E race in Diriyah and leads the championship as it stands. And here in the Grand Prix World Series, he looks like he's going to get a good haul of points towards his respective career here. But is it going to be 18 points for second or 15 points for third? And Grosjean has now dispatched Martin Brundle, who is now falling victim to Taki Inoue on the fresh tyres, making them work towards the end of the race. Inoue has now got past Brundle for 14th place. No points on offer there as we look at Rob Wickens making a bit of an error there. He's got Perry McCarthy and who's the other one? I think Scott Speeds.
It's the Reals. You've got Neil Yarny and Mike Conway right behind him.
Yes, Neil Yarny. I can't always tell the difference between the Modeners and the Reals at distance. I had to check the graphics, but the graphics were on the lower half of the field at that point. So Wickens, he's got a bit of pressure from behind from McCarthy and Yarny. He's got a quick car underneath him. We are now on the penultimate lap, which I think confirms Grosjean as going to the end of this race. He has a gap of 9.5 seconds over Wirtz, who has a gap of 6/10 over Sam Bird. So here is where the battle is going to be in the closing stages of the Sepang Grand Prix League 2 race. Don't forget, we are bringing you the League 1 race tomorrow around about 3 o'clock UK time. So make sure you tune in for that. Alexander Wirtz, he's coming under pressure from Bird here. Bird has tried to make his tyres last to the end of Grand Prix, and he's now taking the time to make the attack. And here is Perry McCarthy trying to chase after Robert Wickens as well. He is about, he's 1.2 behind Robert Wickens for 4th place. And Ur Winkelhock making a bit of a meal of the final corner there. He's in 11th place, 14 seconds off the back of Marino Sato. So he's not looking to be on course for any points at the moment. So the main battle on track now is between Wirtz and Bird. We're looking at Winkelhock at the moment, but Bird is 4/10 behind Alexander Wirtz and on the penultimate lap. Tom, surely this has got to be now or never for a move into second place.
Can he do it onto the last corner here? If he doesn't do it here, he may do it next time around. Probably not close enough to Verts down the inside. No, Verts shuts the door on him. So yeah, as you say, Topher, he could do it into turn 1 though. He's most definitely going to be in the slipstream of the Leighton House. It's a longer straight is this one than it is on the back straight. Is Bird going to be in the slipstream? I don't think he's going to be close enough. He may do it on a... There we go.
He's having a look. He's having a look. He's trying to move down the inside, and he gets out of it. He thought better of that one. But Bird now properly applying the pressure onto Alexander Verts for second place. And Grosjean has now caught up to the back of... Actually, no, that's Inoue unlapping himself on the fresher tyres. So Grosjean playing it sensibly there and just getting out of it, not getting tangled up with the Andrea motor there, because he is on his last lap and on course for what would be an absolutely stellar victory. We were sure that he was on a 2-stop strategy, but he's made an earlier pit stop and a one-stop strategy work. He's about to come through and win the race, and here is the battle we want to see. Sam Bird is all over the back of the Leighton House of Alexander Verts, and this battle is not done yet. We are halfway around the final lap. Verts getting a little bit of a better exit out of that corner there. Bird having a look down the inside, trying to feel the Leighton House's mirrors of his own Zach speed, but not able to find a way through. He might only have one overtaking opportunity left on this lap, and that'll be the final corner. Here is Romain Grosjean, who's in the lead. He's made his strategy work, and he's executed it beautifully. And he is now one corner away from taking his debut victory in the Grand Prix World Series, and only his second attempt. Be a fantastic result, not just for himself, but for the Pacific team as well. He now runs the final corner, and he's got Taki Inoue in front of him, who will go on for another lap. But here he is. Romain Grosjean wins the League 2 race here at Sepang. A fantastic result there. And Bird has done it! At the final corner, Sam Bird has made the move on Alexander Verts, and he takes second place, and we're going to get a quick replay of it here. And you called it right, Tom. He's going to be into the final corner, down the back straight. He gets the job done through the slipstream and into the braking zone. He outbrakes Alexander Verts into the final corner. And he didn't really want to leave it later than that, did he? Sam Bird is going to complete an amazing drive to come home in second place. And Alexander Verts, still a strong result for him and for the Leighton House team. There will be a little bit of disappointment that he didn't come home with second place, but it is still a podium for Leighton House and for Chris Cavney's team. And just to back that up, Robert Wickens is going to come across the line to finish fourth place. It's a double top 4 finish for the Leighton House outfit. A strong day for them. Perry McCarthy will come home in 5th position. They haven't crossed the line yet. And Neil Jarney has actually got Perry McCarthy on the last lap. Was that into the final corner as well, maybe?
Must have been.
And it looks like we're going to get a look at it here. Here is Perry McCarthy with Neil Jarney all over the back of him. And yeah, just like Sam Bird getting past Alexander Verts, Neil Jarney outbrakes McCarthy into the final corner of the lap and steals 5th place away. It's a strong day for the Real team, as they are going to come home in 5th and in 7th. McCarthy, the meat in a Real sandwich. Conway comes home in 7th place. Further down the order, D'Amata has got Scott Speed all over the back of him, and surely not, we're going to get a 3rd overtake at the last corner. They haven't crossed the line yet. We're going to have to wait to see if it comes up on the graphic. But Tom, a fine performance there from Grosjean and a well-deserved first Grand Prix victory for the Frenchman.
Absolutely so, and I was conscious of whether he was going to be coming in for a second stop, considering how soon he pitted for his second set of tyres. But it was absolutely fantastic from him to manage his tyres well and not bother getting that second stop and maintain the lead in front, and who can complain? And D'Amata did come home in 8th place, just to let you know, as did Speed in 9th and Sato 10th.
So a very strong drive there for Cristiano D'Amata in a car that Ewan Gale wanted to be among the slowest in the field, but he's actually come home and taken a brilliant 8th place finish, in all honesty. It's a fine job there from a Brazilian. Scott Speed finishes in 9th place, and Marino Sato does indeed make it a second points finish from 2 races in 10th place. It's a fantastic drive there from all around. And thankfully, Tom, a less attritional race this time around. So here is the final order. Romain Grosjean wins ahead of Sam Bird and Alex Verts. Robert Wickens makes it 2 Leighton Houses in the top 4. Jarney out-Jules McCarthy at the final corner to take 5th. Conway's in 7th ahead of D'Amata, Speed and Sato for the final points-paying position. Vingelhock is 11th ahead of Sospiri. Heidfeld recovers from his earlier shenanigans to finish in 13th ahead of Taki Inoue. Martin Brundle, the only lapped car there. And then the list of retirements. Benoldi, Stevens, Kvyat, Rossi, Franchitti, Zanardi, McNish, Blundell, Ilott, Sutil, and the earliest retirement, Jose Maria Lopez. Well, what a result that was. We were expecting a lot more of a race than we did last time in Adelaide. We had much better attrition this time around. And there's an extra point for Sam Bird there, taking home the final point for the fastest lap there. Only just ahead of Grosjean, actually, after that one. So a close affair for the extra bonus point for the fastest lap. And Tom, what a race that was. That was highly enjoyable and a well-deserved victory for Romain Grosjean.
Absolutely so, and it was very much the survival of the fittest again. And Grosjean, who I think in real life hasn't had the best of luck in Malaysia, but this time around in the Grand Prix World Series, he couldn't do anything wrong. He didn't do anything wrong in this one, so it was absolutely brilliant from start to finish from him. He capitalised on those who struggled, particularly the HRTs and the LaRussas, but his car kept out of trouble and won on merit, and more importantly for Carlton McColeman's Pacific team, who have finally picked up more points. He only had 1 point coming into this event, so to pick up the 25, a massive, massive result for him. And I don't think he could have anything more to complain. I'm sure he would have wanted Kvyat to get home as well, but a win's a win. And hope more and more from him in the races to come. And don't forget, we've still got another race to come in Sepang, which will come tomorrow.
And just to finish up on Carlton McColeman and the Pacific team, that's also going to be very helpful in the upgrade window that is coming up after the League One race tomorrow. Any prize money you can get is going to be massively important in the development of your car, because if you stand still in this sport, you are going to go backwards. So very important for the Pacific team and Carlton McColeman to actually get the results on the board so they can get some much needed prize money out of it. As we said, the League One race is tomorrow. We will bring that to you around about 3 o'clock UK time. But for now, thank you very much for watching. I'm Topher Smith. Alongside me, Tom Cairns. We will be back tomorrow for the League One race. Tune in then. Thank you very much.